Welcome to Independent Thought and Freedom, Episode 11. Today, my guest is Professor Kapil Kumar, and this is a very important episode, given the tensions between India and Pakistan at the moment, which can flare up into nuclear confrontation. Professor Kapil Kumar is a professor of history and the director at the Center for the Freedom Struggle and Diaspora Studies at the Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi, India. He has been controversial because his historical research has challenged the popular and basically official understanding of Indian nationalism and the Indian freedom struggle, challenging the role of nonviolence, Gandhi, and the Indian National Congress, and looking at the important role that other revolutionaries have played in India's independence struggle, who did not embrace nonviolence and whose role has been written out of history. Today, as the tensions in Jammu and Kashmir on the India-Pakistan border reach points not seen since the 1965 Indo-Pakistan War, the understanding of the history of Indian and Pakistani independence, partition, and the place of Jammu and Kashmir in this becomes vital. This is a flashpoint for nuclear war, and it concerns the entire globe. In this context, I welcome very much Professor Kapil Kumar to discuss these controversial and sensitive issues to help the world understand some of the intricacies and details in this global hotspot. Welcome, Professor Kumar.
Thank you very much, and it's a real pleasure to be with you, and particularly, giving views on these different aspects which are becoming controversial. For me, they are very straightforward issues, to be discussed, because I talk very straight and I talk very openly on these issues,
Yes, I mean, this sort of clarity is needed because I think the global media has a very deficient understanding of it and biased in many ways. But one thing I'd like to start off by asking you is, in a situation like this, where passions are running high, lives are being lost, and war is looming on the horizon, how do you balance the need for objectivity as a historian with your legitimate passion for the security of your country and of your fellow citizens in a situation of near war? How do you balance it?
You see, I am not a warmonger. Rather, I follow the ancient Indian tradition where we call Sardhav Sambhava, where we talked of Vasudev Kutumbakam, that the whole world is a family. Mm-hmm. I remember the words of Swami Vivekananda, his address to the Chicago Religious Conference, that India is one country which has sheltered, all in the world.
Right.
I'd also like to mention here, because my, experience, my education, my life comes out of my Indian values. Mm-hmm. You tell me a single Indian religion which took birth on India's soil has ever used the sword to conquer the world. Whether it was Hinduism, whether it was Sikhism, whether it was Jainism, whether it was Buddhism. We never used the sword. We never went converting people with sword or allurements. And that is the peace which India stands for. Right. But now it is not 10th or 15th century that we'll keep on tolerating the invaders. We had a very ancient Indian concept, Atiti Devo Bhave, that all guests are like gods to us.
Right.
But in that process, what happened in India, that we started treating the intruders also as guests.
Yes.
And now, believing in all our concepts of peace, harmony, we still stand by this now, that if anyone lifts eyes towards India, the nation will stand one. Of course, we do have traitors even today, like we had in the past, and we'll deal with them. Mm-hmm. But now the whole question comes in this aspect of Indo-Pak relations. I want to make my position very clear on one thing. Kashmir is no issue. Issue is not Kashmir. Kashmir is an integral part of India. Not from now, not from 47, but since thousands of years. If you look at the history of Kashmir, the Kashyap Muni establishing it, and what right from, Kashmir to Kanyakumari has been the concept of Indian nation for long. And I don't go by these parameters of European definitions of nation statehood. If we have to understand India, we have to understand the Orient, we have to understand them by our own Oriental concepts, by our own Indian concepts. Okay, so for us, Kashmir is no issue. The issue is, Kashmir has some issues. And within those issues, one can discuss, one can debate, one can talk on certain things, but there is no compromise on this aspect that Kashmir is an issue and it has to be discussed with Pakistan, or it has to be discussed with terrorists or with separatists or with jihadis, because Kashmir is an integral part of India.
Well, I want to touch on two things you said there, because you see, this is some of the controversies that people have with some of the nationalist positions and so forth. When you speak of invaders, people will assume that this is an anti-Muslim rhetoric, that what you are saying, you are maybe being hostile to Indians who are Muslim. What do you
No, not at all, not at all, not at all. Okay. You see, I tell you, many large sections of Indian Muslims have been nationalists and are nationalists and will remain nationalists. And let me tell you one thing. 1857, please remember that. There was a Muslim ruler, Badshah.
Yep.
Bahadur Shah, whose rule was limited to a few lanes of Delhi.
That's right. And
the entire country at that time accepted him as the Emperor of India. Yes. The most orthodox Hindu princess, whether it was Nana Sahab, whether it was Satya Tope, whether it was Rani Jhansi, Kanwar Singh. So I don't want to bring in this dichotomy of Hindu-Muslim in today's situation.
Exactly.
I talked of leaders in the context of 10th and 15th centuries, not in present-day context. We have many Muslims who have been giving their lives for India. Even in Kashmir, they have been fighting terrorists and all. We right from 1857, if I pick up, from Azimullah to Basha Abdul Ghaffar Khan, Ashfaqullah.
Yes.
See, all iron name, India and Azad in Fauj of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, had General Kiani, had Shah Nawaz Khan, had Habibur Rahman, along with other Hindus and different castes and different people and all that. So please don't take me, you see, I am not anti-Muslim at all.
Right.
I am not anti-Islam at all. Yes, I am anti-jihadi.
Right.
I am anti-terrorists.
Correct.
I am against those who use Islam for their own personal vested interests of terrorism.
That is right. And a lot of people don't even realize that India, there are more Muslims in India than in Pakistan.
Not only that, in 1947, when the British partitioned India on the basis of religion, more Muslims decided to stay back in India than go to Pakistan.
Correct. Correct. Exactly.
And the amount, listen, I'll give you one more thing, which the people don't know. Look at China. These liberals and all those, and these so-called commies and all, who shout about minority rights and all, can they open their mouth on what China is doing to their minorities in their western provinces?
Correct.
In India, they say Muslims are not safe. And what is happening in China? Even Azan is closed. They can't keep beards. Demographic changes are taking place. And the Saudi prince goes there and says, this is done openly. And when it comes to Pakistan, I want to ask a question here, How much pro-Muslim is Pakistan? The Bangladeshis who were massacred in East Pakistan at that time, were they not Muslims? The Balochs, which are being massacred every day by Pakistani army, aren't they Muslims? The Afghans in Afghanistan with the Taliban who Pakistan sided with Taliban to kill these Afghans, weren't they Muslims?
Yeah. I mean,
it can't be projected that we are anti-Muslims.
Exactly. I think that a lot of people in the world don't realize what partition meant. It wasn't that, because you can correct me on the figures, but I am fairly certain that it might be up to 70% of Pakistanis are not ancestrally from the region of Pakistan. So it's not that there were people in Pakistan that they separated. They moved people.
No, I want to ask another question here.
Yes.
Some of the Muslims of India who moved to Pakistan.
Yes.
They are known as mujahirs there.
Right.
Were they given equal treatment? Their whole movement is there. And if religion was such a unifying factor, then why there are contradictions between the Pathan Muslims and the Punjabi Muslims?
That's right.
Within the Baloch Muslims and Afghani Muslims? With the Sindhi Muslims and other Muslims?
Yes, in the whole northwestern frontier.
And that's why I said that I'm not against religion.
Exactly.
You see, I am not even against a person being a fundamentalist.
Right.
If you follow your religion, any religion, it is good. Because if there is no religion, there will be no values, there will be no human life. But don't be a fanatic.
That's right.
I asked a question.
And the jihadi and the terrorism is that has to be.
I asked a question once. I was on a TV debate, and this man was talking of secularism and this and that and all that. And he said, I respect all religions. I made him say this thrice, confirming it. And when he kept on saying, I respect all religions, then I asked him a question. If you respect all religions, then why do you want to convert people of other religion to your religion?
Yes.
We believe in Sarv Dharav Sambhave.
Yes.
That let all religions flourish. We don't go and convert people.
Yes. That is an issue with the Christian and Islamic religions that really don't exist among any other religion in the world. This idea of the one truth, and you have to convert people because it's heresy, and it's a very unfortunate feature of those religions. But I want to get to the question of the creation of Pakistan itself, because there are troubling issues at the very foundation, because it seems to me that the whole idea of Pakistan existing comes from a mistaken idea that somehow Muslims cannot live with other people. So they had to create a state.
It doesn't come from there. I tell you from where it came. First, I will quote Maulana Azad on this.
Right.
In his book on India Wins Freedom, he writes...
Is that the poet from the 1930s who thought of the idea?
Maulana Azad, who has remained a Congress president also, and who was minister also later on in independent India, a nationalist.
Right.
He wrote in that our leadership had taken a decision in favor of partition, and the entire country wept over it.
Right.
And now let me go back to you. You see, the entire policy of the British in India was based on what they faced in 1857.
Right.
We call the first war of independence. They call it a Sipahi revolt.
And I'll just say to the viewers right now, there's a big movie in India called Manikarnika, Jhansi, and it's about one of the female freedom fighters, and that was destroying the East India Company, which was, a lot of people think the British ruled India, but it was a company, a private company called the East India Company that was the largest company in history, the most evil corporation in human history. And it was this rebellion of the Indian soldiers who worked for the company that actually destroyed the company.
No, it was not just the soldiers. You see, I have done so much research and discovered it out.
And you are from where it started in Beirut.
It was a pre-planned thing. It was being planned for years. There were 3 dates for it. Very aptly kept for environmental purposes. 10th May, 30th May, 10th June. The British can't fight in summer weather.
Right.
Heat. Followed by rainy season, when the supplies are cut. Very strategically done. From Peshawar in northwest to Dibrugarh in Assam. Down south.
Yes.
Badgam, Karnataka, these places, let
me interject here, please, because you see, the official history doesn't make sense, because what the official history says is because they put the bullet containers.
That was only just a...
You see, with
on the contrary, I'll say one thing.
then they rebelled.
We consider Mangal Pandey a big hero, but he in fact, jumped the gun,
Yes.
That had it been on 10th May, instead of those dates, the results would have been different. Anyway, coming back to this issue of Pakistan, I'll tell you. Syed Ahmad Khan. Now, he was a British official during that first place in Bijnor district of UP.
In what year are we talking about?
Sir Syed Ahmad Khan.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote, this is 1957-58 I'm talking of.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the man who established the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, which became the Aligarh Muslim University later on.
Okay.
Now, he was a British official, a deputy collector and all at that time. And after 1857, 1858, he wrote a book, I think it's Dastane-e-Gadar or something it is called, in which he explained the reasons of the 1857.
Oh.
And listen to his observations, what he says. All the Muslims who had participated in this great war, he calls them Badjat, low caste, Badmash, Goons. He says they are Kasais and Julahas who have participated in this. Second thing.
So can I ask a question? So was this Muslim official who wrote this book? Was he part of the Mughals or at all? So was he like?
Well, he's an elite, coming from some royal lineage,
Right. So
doesn't like the common people.
Exactly. So
here's what he tells the British. What he writes in that to the British.
Right.
He tells the British, you committed a fault by making these regiments in which you placed the Hindus and Muslims together.
Right.
So they came closer, they united and they fought against you.
Right.
You should have had units like Nadir Shah. When Nadir Shah invaded, Persia and all, he made a separate unit of Afghans, he made a separate units of Persians, keep them away. So if need be, they can fight each other.
Right.
You united these people. Then he says, let us have an Anglo-Mohammedan alliance. You Britishers are the rulers, we Muslims are the rulers, and these Hindus are to be ruled.
Right. So
he is the man who sowed this divide and rule policy in India, guided the British to that divide and rule policy in India. Then his further elitism is experienced when he establishes this Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College for education of Muslims.
So Mohammedan Anglo, right.
Educated. But you know what he says?
Because
you know what he says?
Mm-hmm.
He says, this college is not meant for ikkewalas.
Right.
Ikkewala means these horse cart drivers.
Okay, the horse cart
this
drivers.
College is meant only for the elite.
Right.
It is not meant for the downtrodden people.
Right.
This is how the scene was on.
People don't realize, again, the Mughal Empire, when the East India Company came in, was one of the richest empires in the world. It was richer than many European.
It is not just the Mughal Empire.
Yes.
It is the entire Indian economy.
Yes, exactly.
See, before the Industrial Revolution, India and China are the two largest economies of the world.
That's
you see,
right.
Why was Columbus like a mad person searching for India?
Exactly. It's always, Angus Madison's stats from the OECD show it clearly from 1 AD right up to the 18th century, India and China were the largest economies in the world. And when the East India Company was through with it, they went from 30% of the global economy down to 3%. It was a
this is a very simple. I explain this very simply, which people don't understand. My first assumption is that it is foolish to say that they came for trade and the Indians used to fight among themselves, so they established empire. They were colonialists. Before coming to India, they had established colonial empires. They established their colonies over there, and colonialism emerged as a psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this psyche included how to dominate, how to rule, how to suppress, how to subjugate. Yeah. Now, for this, what happened in India, they realized here that they were confronting a civilization.
Yes. It wasn't like in the West Indies where or like in America where you had hunters and gatherers. This was something very, very different. Yes.
And in fact, not one civilization, but a combination of civilizations, which had very strong roots. And they decided that, and they knew that unless they demolish everything which was India, whether it was science, whether it was
Yeah.
economics, whether it was manufacture,
Literature,
whether it was
books.
medicine, any aspect, they won't be able to dominate India.
Yeah.
And
The
that's
amount of books that was burned, the amount of knowledge, people don't look at all these things.
I'll give you a very interesting example. And that is where I correlate between the Marxist historians and
Yes.
colonial historians. The colonial historians, Stretchy and all say, there is nothing like India, you know, as we understand of a nation. We created India.
Yeah.
And everything they denounce. And
Yes.
what does Karl Marx says in June 1853 write-ups?
Right.
India has no history.
Yes.
If it is a history, it's history of invasions only.
Exactly.
The question here was, who is to rule over India? The Turk, the Russian, or the British?
That's right.
So the British are ruling over India, meaning, this revolutionary is saying that meaning that Indians deserve to be ruled. You know.
That's right.
And, you know, he denounces, again, like the colonialists, he denounces each and everything which is Indian and goes to the extent of saying this. Because they being human beings, they worship cow and they worship, monkeys and all those kind of things to denounce their husband. And unfortunately, that historiography prevailed in company.
So what you're saying is that this Anglo-Mohammedan elite alliance from 1857, after the mutiny that destroyed the East India Company and forced the Britain to declare itself an empire and come in as a government now, is that policy that persisted up until partition? Is that what you're saying?
I think even now.
Yes.
Up to partition.
Yeah.
And see, this was very successfully taken to the colonies also.
Yes.
I'll give you examples of that. Plantation colonies particularly. And what happened there was, now the English needed loyalists. And they were picking loyalists, both from among Hindus and among Muslims.
Yes.
It is not just one community. Because the British ruled through Indian traitors only. You see, there were a handful of British ruling over India.
Like Niraj Chowdhury, for example.
Many, plenty. And what they did was that in between they were doing a bifurcation.
Yeah.
When nationalism started, you see, let me tell you one more thing. That the fire of 1857, they were able to, douse it.
Right.
But the flames could not be killed.
Yeah.
They kept on coming at different intervals of time and different streams.
Right.
And
so
that is why we see the early revolutionary movement emerging in India. On the one hand, Congress wants to have, participation in the government and self-government and all those things. On the other hand, come the revolutionaries like Vasant Phatke and all. Yes. And the Anushilan and these Samitis in Yugantar in Bengal and all.
Yeah.
And to curb that, again they start this diversionary thing when the Muslim League gets established.
The Muslim League, yeah.
Because who takes the action? 1907. The Bengal, the Nawab of Dhaka. When they partitioned Bengal on basis of communal divide into two parts. There was a whole-fledged nationalism which rose in Bengal against this partition of Bengal with both Hindus and Muslims joining hands together.
Right.
And to curb that nationalism, they encouraged the Muslim elite to form the Muslim League.
Right.
To further divide it out.
Yeah.
Which policy they consistently maintained till 1947. And
because let's bring it to the conflict. I mean, so this divide and rule policy. I mean, I would say in the Cold War too, when the United States supported Pakistan in the Cold War against Russia, and then India with the USSR, the United States supported Pakistan militarily and so forth, and you saw it in the 1965 war when the Pakistanis had sophisticated American equipment and fighters, and the Indians were left with World War II planes and so forth. But that this divide has continued with one superpower supporting one side and another superpower supporting another side. So without getting into the details of that, because it could take us so long to talk about, but Jammu and Kashmir, how does that fit in for people who don't really know the history so much?
Let's be very clear. People, yes, when look at the history of Jammu and Kashmir was a princely state. I'm not going to the earlier history now. I'm talking of 47.
Yes.
And there was a state people's movement in Jammu and Kashmir.
Yeah, so let me just explain
like any other princely states of India.
That's right.
When the Congress was fighting for the national movement.
Yeah, let me explain to the viewers, the listeners, that in even up to 1947, there were many states in India that were still run by princes and not directly by the British. So what you're clarifying here is that Jammu and Kashmir was one of these states not run by the British, but by a prince, Hari Singh, I believe his name.
And there was a democratic movement against that by the people of Kashmir for establishing democratic aspects,
Right.
And that's the time they were in league, the state people's movement. The Congress supported that movement all throughout in that period and all. And when the British very shrewdly again in 47, you see, British tried their best to dismember India at that time.
Mm-hmm.
One, there was a scheme to balkanize India.
Yes.
Given by the chief of the British Indian Army at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The other scheme was projected to the Nawab of Bhopal.
Yeah.
That instead of giving power to India and Pakistan, the Prince's Chamber of States, their organization, should be treated as a country. Right. And the power should be given to them also. Very few people know these facts of history, what was going on at that time.
Right.
And within that, then Patel thwarted Patel
and India just recently unveiled the tallest statue in the world, and it's to the same person, Patel, who unified the country and brought in the princely states. Am I correct?
Definitely. That's why he's called the Iron Man of India,
Right.
And then what happened, that when the British left, they created this problem again. They simply said, Paramount C has left.
Right.
Now, leaving to the states, either you become independent, or you join Pakistan, or you join the Indian Union.
Right.
So in such a situation,
yes,
Hyderabad, Junagadh, they declared they will join Pakistan.
Right.
That's where Patel took the action. And I tell you one more thing.
So can you explain that? So Hyderabad, which was another princely state, it wanted to join Pakistan, but Patel made it stay in India. Is that correct?
Yeah. Both Junagadh and Hyderabad. Right. And let us not forget another aspect here.
Yes.
That in each of these princely states, the British had their what do you call them, residents,
Right. Yeah, the resident. But were the people of Hyderabad against that move? Did they want to go to Pakistan?
No, the people welcomed. The people welcomed, except for the Razakars. The people welcomed it, Right. So was the Junagadh thing,
Because it's not an issue. It doesn't seem to be an issue at all. No. Like Hyderabadis don't ask to be part of Pakistan.
And let me tell you, same happened in Kashmir.
Right.
Immediately, you see, Mountbatten was playing a double game at that time.
Right. Mountbatten is a British.
When Pakistan attacked Kashmir, it was given that those Kabaili raiders are there, tribal raiders have intruded. It is absurd. It was the Pakistan army supporting the tribals, moving out with them.
Right.
And that's the time this Hari Singh, the king of Kashmir, who initially was thinking of a Switzerland-type independent state.
Right.
Wanted to remain independent and all. Then he realized that he will be taken over by Pakistan.
Right.
And that's how he signs the document of accession to India.
Right.
And the Indian forces move into Kashmir. They started throwing out the Pakistani army and the Kabailis.
Right.
And the Indian army advises the Prime Minister of India at that time, Nehru, that don't go for a ceasefire till we have thrown them out.
Right.
Because they were winning. And Nehru, under Mountbatten's guidance and all that, orders a ceasefire, which created Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
Right.
Otherwise, that problem would not have been today.
So now, what year was this?
47, 48.
Okay, so Nehru was he wasn't prime minister as yet, but there was a large degree of self-government.
No, he was the prime minister. He became the prime minister on 15th August 47.
Okay, so but Mountbatten was still advising him.
Because they had still made Mountbatten as the first Governor General of India.
Oh, okay.
Pakistan didn't make Mountbatten. Pakistan made Jinnah there.
Because it wasn't a republic as yet.
Yes. Over there.
Yes.
And in such a situation, and in such a situation, it was Nehru who took the matter to the UN. You had known that. No sense in taking that out.
Yes.
Because an international issue was being created.
Right.
So don't forget one aspect.
Yeah.
That after the First World War, two nations were created in the name of religion.
After
and
the
Second World War.
Second World War.
Two nations were created in the name of religion.
Israel and Pakistan.
And you know where the word stands.
Correct.
Today.
Correct. Those are exactly those. And what I find amazing is that a country like the United States, which purports to be a liberal democracy and is supposed to be secular and non-racist, these are explicitly exclusive ethnic states. Pakistan is an Islamic...
I'll give you one example. When they were creating Taliban against the Soviets, I had made a very interesting observation in one of my lectures at that time.
Right.
And I made a comparison with the local goons. You know what happens? That some of the able-bodied youngsters, when they come to study in a city, some of the city businessmen start using these people to do some unlawful activities for them.
Right.
Or, getting that money extorted and all those things.
Right. Yeah.
And what happens? The day this is given no work to do that and doesn't get his share, this fellow will keep a knife on that businessman's neck.
That's
Give me
right.
my donation. And that is what I had predicted at that time.
Yes.
That is what Taliban is going to do in this world. The Western world is not realizing that what a monster they are creating.
Correct.
And we have seen the results.
Yeah.
And still certain things are going. Now coming back to Kashmir.
Yeah, because what people, because the way it's framed in the international discourse that you'll find on BBC and CNN and American media is that Kashmir is a majority Muslim state, so that they should not, so that if they join India, somehow they'll be oppressed.
This is again, you see, this is again a very interesting thing to say,
Yes.
It was the valley which had Muslim majority.
Right.
Ladakh was not Muslim. Jammu was not Muslim.
Right.
It was a state of Jammu and Kashmir. And the question is, when you are talking of these kind of majorities and all, Muslim majority and all, I don't agree on this concept of the religion being, and I'll give an explanation. If religion is a binding factor, then the whole medieval, this world is Islamic, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Iran, Iraq, and all that. Then it should have been one country.
Well, it was the Ottoman Empire, and it was the West that divided it.
That's which is created. This is Muslim majority and all. Tell me one thing. Indonesia is a Muslim majority country. Why did Indonesia put the Ganesha photograph on its currency?
Exactly.
Why there are no communal rights in Indonesia? Why they sing together everything? Till very recent in the Caribbean. How the communities stayed together.
Yes.
With each other.
And it's based on a false premise. That whole argument is saying, first of all, it's saying India is a Hindu state. It is not. It is a secular state. So, and there are more Muslims.
No, and I'll ask another thing.
Yes.
Why doesn't, if Muslims have to be one state, then why doesn't whole Europe become one state?
Exactly.
Yes.
It doesn't make...
They can't even stay together in European Union. You know, they are moving out and all that.
That is right. It doesn't make sense because not only is it wrong to say that Muslims should be in Pakistan because there are more Muslims in India. Also, India is not a Hindu state, and then so they are saying that it's okay to have ethnic states. So when black people in the United States have called for their own country, like Louis Farrakhan or the Nation of Islam did, Malcolm X, you know, that's crazy. And nowadays you have the alt-right in the United States, a fellow named Richard Spencer and other people talking about a white ethno-state, and people saying that's wrong. But somehow they advocate the idea of an ethno-state for Pakistan. They say Iraq should be divided into Kurdish, Sunni, and Shia. So they think for the rest of the world it should be ethnically divided, but for somehow themselves, maybe because they are more intellectually advanced, or this hypocrisy and double standards is just incredible. But they keep pushing this in the you know, the dominant media of the world. You know,
it's not just only this. On the one hand, you say we talk of development, we talk of modernity, we talk of progress, we talk of modern ideas, modern values, modern principles. Then on the other hand, then why do you talk of these religious minorities and majorities?
Yes, exactly.
Then isn't that an old concept? Then why you want to divide the word on that?
Exactly.
On the basis of ethnicity. And who created this ethnicity? You see, I tell you, in 1857, many of the traditional Indian communities who are not castes, and I don't agree to this caste word being used for the Indian Varna system.
Yes.
Now, many of these were traditional professional communities.
That's right.
Who were overnight converted into, within quotes, lower castes by the British.
Right. Right.
You know, the oil drawers, teli, the cobblers, the ironsmiths, the goldsmiths.
Yeah.
They were not castes, they were traditional communities.
Right.
And the beauty,
it's almost like medieval guilds. Like what?
You know, that's what I'm saying. That's why we have to look at understanding our own concepts. See, we had a community tradition.
Yeah.
So if there was a weaver, his children will learn weaving within the family.
Yeah.
Right from day one.
Yes.
And then come as master weavers.
That's right.
Now, these modern concepts, when the children are taught like that, they call them child labor.
Right.
But if you go and pay in a polytechnic lakhs of rupees to get that same education, that is skill education.
That is right. Exactly.
This is the difference between our Oriental culture and our traditions and these kind of things.
Right.
So this whole Kashmir thing was built by them, created by them. And there's another aspect, let me point out.
Yeah.
This is my analysis. Why this problem emerged. They knew very well the potential that if India grows up economically, if we had no tensions with, say, Pakistan,
yes,
where our economy would have been.
That's true.
Pakistan has ruined its economy.
Because right now the Indian economy,
most rising middle class in the world, biggest youth in the world, our economy going up.
Yeah, and by 2050, India is projected to be the largest economy in the world.
They realized the Indian potential.
Yep.
I asked this question once. Someone was asking me, can we have the best brains in the country? I said, no. You have bought the best brains of the world.
Yeah.
How many % of Indians have been working in NASA? How many doctors of Indian origin are there?
And CEOs and lecturers at universities all around the world. I mean,
Chinese?
Yes, the potential, the economic potential of India is immense, and it always has been in human history.
And there's another interesting dimension to this.
Yeah,
they have seen the growth of China,
right,
emerging as a strong world power, as a strong world economy, and they don't want India to go in the same direction.
Correct.
Because if India becomes a strong economy or a strong power in that sense, then they are not able to face Chinese economy and Chinese growth. What will happen to them if India, another giant from Asia, emerges like that?
So this is geopolitics. It is not
geopolitics.
Right. So the best way to understand this is as geopolitics, not really local skirmishes. It's being framed in terms of local issues, but in reality, it is geopolitics. It is pure geopolitics.
It is geopolitics.
That's what I.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. There are people in Pakistan. I am a great admirer of Benazir Bhutto.
Yes.
But who knew that her life was at risk?
Yes.
But she went to contest for democracy in Pakistan.
Yeah.
The Pakistanis might have forgotten Benazir Bhutto, but I remember her.
Yeah.
And she was murdered. And within a week, her murder was thrown off, you know. There are people in Pakistan who are fed up of army rule, who are fed up of their intelligence rule and aspect over there.
Yeah.
And why this problem between India and Pakistan cannot be solved is, there is a reason for that. People tell us, every power is telling us today, talk, 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 no war, peace only. Yes, I want peace. But please tell me, whom should I talk to?
Yeah.
Should I talk to those ISI people who are training the terrorists against me?
Yeah.
Who are carrying the raids against India? In spite of that, we did talk. After the Pathankot attack on our
just for people who don't know, the ISI is a Pakistani.
You know, even we allowed an ISI team to come to India.
Yeah.
What have been we getting from Pakistan every time? Vajpayee travels in a bus to Lahore, starts people-to-people contact. We get a Kargil.
Yeah.
Narendra Modi goes to meet Nawaz Sharif out of protocol to wish him and all.
Yes.
And we get Uri and we get Pathankot.
Yes.
So please, we are prepared to talk. We are for peace.
Yeah. And just for listeners,
Indian nation is not going to talk to the rogues.
Yeah.
It is not going to talk to those who perpetuate terrorism.
So what do you see?
There is a statement. You want to talk and all? Yes. Close down your. The whole world knows where was Bin Laden found.
That's right. Where was Bin Laden?
Shockingly, I'll tell you that I had closed my Hotmail account. In 2004, I wrote to there was some site of Americans to which I wrote, you are searching for Bin Laden. So please search for him either where the Pakistan, China, Afghanistan borders meet.
That's right.
That remote region, or search him in the house of some ex-Pakistani army general or ISI official.
Right.
Now these people, doesn't the whole world know that they sheltered Bin Laden, the terrorist?
Exactly. And it's the same thing in Syria. How they fund ISIS. People, the West are funding ISIS and Al Qaeda. People, the Al Nusra Front, and so.
I tell you, they are playing with fire.
That's right.
I don't know what they are playing with.
And right now in Venezuela, it's a geopolitical thing as well, because now they're dividing the country. They're recognizing this 35-year-old person who came out of nowhere, Guaido, and they are now manufacturing a crisis. They're saying they want to send humanitarian aid, but it's only going to go to the person that they recognize as the prime minister. This divide and rule geopolitics, it is, and Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. This is what it's about. These geopolitics, geoeconomic.
One of my analysis after the debacle of Soviet Union was that now starts the warfare in third world countries, where the arms have to be sold, from where new money has to be extorted. And you see what is happening in several countries in Africa.
Right.
The South American continent is now the latest target. It used to be so peaceful till so long. What is happening over there, as you are mentioning, and you never know in that. Well, Middle East had already been a problem at that time, which continues to be. And I foresee a future problem in Europe.
Yeah. Because of the migrants and the Muslim.
See, definitely. You see, I am not against helping the poor.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. See, there's a difference. One has to differentiate between a migrant, an intruder, and a refugee.
That's right. That's
legally. Right. Now, what my country is facing today, that intruders move in, And when they are caught, we are refugees.
That's right.
How the hell you can be a refugee unless the government has given you that status of refugee?
Exactly.
And these so-called human rightists,
Yes.
go into those.
Yeah, those human rights people are being manipulated by jihadis and by people with evil intentions. That's what it is.
I know it.
They are being manipulated.
Why not?
People who have good intention, because a lot of these people
I'll tell you
have
very
good
recently,
intention.
the Supreme Court of India has admitted a petition signed by 2 daughters of army officers who are claiming that doesn't the army has any human rights?
Yeah.
When the army is standing there, they are not firing at anyone, they are not killing anyone, and suddenly you find stones being pelted at them.
Yeah.
Are army men dragged or killed? Aren't they humans? Aren't their family humans?
Exactly.
It's a very balanced aspect in terms of human rights. I'm all for human rights.
I mean, so let me ask you, just to finally close off the discussion on Jammu and Kashmir, because I want to ask you some other things as well. But what do you see as the way forward in this? What is it?
Let me tell you 2 things. Pakistan will have to close down its terror factories. And if those in Pakistan who think that they are a nuclear power and they get hit in India are living in a fool's paradise, let me tell you, from military point of view, strategic point of view, international diplomacy point of view, or economic point of view. Yeah. See, Pakistan strategically is like a border state to us.
Yes.
Now, we need only 2.5 minutes advance notice of any missile being fired on India, or any rocket, or any plane coming towards India.
Yeah.
Because now, except a few cities, like Jammu, Pathankot, or Amritsar.
And I just want to put it in context, because a Pakistani general has already threatened the use of nuclear weapons against India.
I challenge him. I challenge him. As a citizen, I challenge him. I'm not a journal. For 4 or 5 cities of India, we don't get this advance notice.
Yes.
But for any other city of India, we have that advance notice, and our defense mechanism are so strong that any such missile, rocket, or plane towards India will be shot down. They tried yesterday. They intruded and they failed. They couldn't move it, Right. They couldn't even destroy in a border region anything over there. Secondly, do you think these cities, Jammu, Lahore, Amritsar, or Pathankot, etc., they can bomb them? If they bomb them, then half the Pakistan will be affected because of their proximity to these Pakistan borders over there. Can they afford that? Unless they are mad jihadis who want to have the Jannat and the Hoor after killing themselves, they can go for this self-destruction.
Yeah.
Secondly, they should know another point. They are like a border state to us. Even if we are beaten for a while in the front battle, we can always bring our reserves to the forefront.
Right.
From where will they get the reserves? From where will they get the reserves? And do you think that any power on their behalf will intervene? Knowing that it is a rogue state? And there was a joke yesterday coming up. Someone said, Pakistan is being isolated. In fact, their Zardari, their president only said that we are being isolated. So the joke went on. Imran says, how come you are shouting we are isolated? We can never be isolated. He said, how can you say that? So he said, ask my General Bajwa, we can never be isolated. So the general asked Zardari, oh, you have lended money to so many people? He said, yes, how do you know whether the ISI has told you? He said, well, whatever, but you have lended money to the people? He said, yes. So he said, will you isolate yourself from them? Won't you run after them, behind them to get your money and interest back? So we have taken money from everyone in the world. How can the world leave us? See, my suggestion is to the Pakistani people, they are very good people in Pakistan. Right. There are people in Pakistan who want peace. There are people in Pakistan who resent that why we were partitions.
Yes.
Partition. I've met many. Please let this domination of RB and ISI, throw it out.
Yes.
Have your democracy. We want you to strengthen you in a democracy. Have a big democratic setup. And we can talk, we can sit, and we will resolve these issues, but not at the base of gun, that you kill our people, you send terrorists here, and you think that India will talk or any Indian will talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because a proxy war has already been declared against us by them.
Yes.
And it's now, after so many years, that first time we are taking defensive action. I think this action should have been taken at 27/11/2008, after Mumbai.
Yeah.
International tourists were killed during that Mumbai blast.
That is right.
What's the international community doing? And the international community should realize, I'll bring in this example here, what the ISIS did to Yazdis. Can you believe that in 21st century, naked women being sold in the slave markets?
Yes.
Ethnically killing people? Is this civilization?
Exactly.
And still some powers support them. Some rules support them.
Yes.
So we are for peace. We want peace. But peace not at the cost of the lives of our Jawans, our soldiers. Peace not at the cost of our innocent lives. Then you will have it.
Yeah.
You give one hand, we will give 3 hands for shaking. But if you show us a box, then we have 4 boxes. Right. Gone are the days. Yeah. And God is that theory. So I'll tell you something. I have been saying this in India. We need a Gandhi's charkha for our rural reconstruction, for our self-sufficient village economy. But to practice that charkha in this country and to develop economy, we need also a Sudarshan chakra. To save this country.
So save this country meeting the wheel. So you need the Gandhian vision for the rural economies, but you also need a strong military.
You have to protect that democracy, you know.
Yes.
See, who protects my republic?
That's right.
My democracy. People say there are no freedoms in India. Arey Baba, the very you are talking in India that you don't have freedom, it means that you have ample freedom. Yeah. It's not a dictatorship. Speak that in Pakistan or speak that in any other country, communist country over there. What will you have? And it is our soldier who in the most adverse circumstances, coming from the poor peasant families, defends us sitting in the snow at -30 temperature in Siachen or in the ravines of Gujarat, run of Kutch, at the borders. He saves our democracy. He saves our constitution. He saves our freedoms. And I salute him.
Yeah, I want to I want to go on another tangent right now, because I mean there's a lot of questions I really wanted to ask you about historiography and the Indian independence movement, but I think we'll probably have to do that in another episode, because there's so much I want to talk to you about.
Because each issue is so much and it's also vast and all that.
But I think there's a good sort of bridge that we can take with this and to explore some of the issues, which is the Indian emergency in 1975-77. You had indicated that this was an important turning point in your life. And very interestingly, I mean, you might be considered I don't know if you would consider yourself a Hindutva nationalist, but people will certainly put you on that side, as opposed to, because it's very interesting, in India, the Indian National Congress, they were nationalists, but in the current configuration, they're not seen as nationalists. So, but the Hindutva nationalists, but you, at one point, were a communist. And so this whole history of you once being a communist, your experience in the emergency, because I understand, my understanding of the emergency, that's when Indira Gandhi declared a national state of emergency, very much because of the unrest, the Maoists and the communists who were disrupting the Indian government. And that was a transformative period in your life. Am I correct? Can you clarify?
You see, let me first make one statement.
Yes.
You see, I teach history, I study history, I research in history. I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Hindu. First of all, I am a human being. And then I have a religion. and to save humanity first. I believe in this, that if there is a wedge between the two communities, let us close that wedge.
Right.
I don't believe in making even bridges, because a wooden bridge may fall down,
Right.
a concrete bridge may fall down, an iron bridge may get junked.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not one of those historians who try to run their shops by increasing this Hindu-Muslim tension and all these aspects. I believe in harmony, I believe in peace, and I go into that.
Right.
Now, starting for that to your question, you see, since my childhood, I was always a nationalist.
Right.
My father had participated in the 42 movement.
Right.
We used to hear stories from
You.
him.
You were born during colonial rule or after?
No, after.
Right.
Mine 54.
Right.
So we used to hear stories coming from a family. My mother will give us stories of partition.
Mm-hmm.
They were in Lahore and all, my aunts and all, they moved in and all. I was always a nationalist, you see.
Right.
And particularly...
So your family was affected by partition?
Some members of my family were affected by partition.
And I know for the listeners abroad, I don't think people understand how many Indians were affected by partition. Millions and millions of people had to leave their homes, leave their property. And it is amazing how many people were affected. Yes, so you were directly affected, your family?
My family, some in my family.
Yeah.
And I was never in any admiration of the Congress Party.
Right.
As a student, right from my 6th class onwards, when I was studying history,
Mm-hmm.
I admired the revolutionaries.
What about Gandhi?
No.
No. Why?
And I'll tell you.
Yeah.
You see, now when I judge as a historian,
Yes.
Gandhi played a major role in converting the Congress into a mass organization.
Right.
In the freedom.
Absolutely.
His appeal to the masses, he brought the masses in the fold.
Yeah.
I have all admiration for Gandhi on that count.
And what I would also say is that he made ordinary people believe that British rule was illegitimate. And that was an incredibly important thing.
See, those factors are there,
yeah.
But there is a catch in this. And the catch is that in spite of having converted the Congress into a mass movement, the common man's leadership which emerged out of that mass movement was not given a place in the official hierarchy of the Congress leadership organization.
It remained an elitist organization. It started as an elitist organization and
remained as an elitist organization. Yeah. And sometimes I say that it started with a demand that Indians should be given to share power with the British.
Right.
Okay, more seats in the assembly, Indians should get jobs and all. And that's what was done in 47.
Correct.
That instead of Gandhi coming out and leading a movement against partition, they give consent to partition and they accept partition.
I was an
admirer more of Subhash Chandra Bose in that.
Yeah, that is a very important point. I've heard you made it elsewhere. And it reflects very much on what we talk about in the Caribbean and our independence movements, that nobody fought for independence here. The British were withdrawing, and so a group of opportunists sort of went in to say, well, let us just take your place. So the system remained in power. You called it, and I heard in one of your speeches, a transfer of power. It was not a revolutionary overthrow of the system, but just a change of leadership. It was the transfer of power. And it's the first time I heard it expressed that way in India, that the Congress was seeking a transfer of power and not really a revolutionary transformation from colonial.
Sometimes what I say.
Yes.
I say that the British ruled with the policy, what you call that divide and rule.
Yes.
And the rulers who came after India in 47 ruled to divide.
Right, yes.
That's how they maintained their power.
Exactly. And
you make so much division so rampant. And sometimes I say that what these people did was, that they started establishing a feudocracy in India instead of democracy.
Right.
20 families ruling this country,
Yep.
different states,
A billion.
center.
Yeah.
And that is why today, when a common man has become the Prime Minister of India,
Yes. A
the
chai
elite
wala.
families and the feudal families can't tolerate it.
That's right. That's exactly correct. That is exactly correct.
And it's the beauty of Indian democracy in that sense, contrary to that, that in a person who started his career as selling tea,
yes,
moved up and became a prime minister, and not only a prime minister, he has put India in the center stage today.
And I mean, and this is part of the hypocrisy of liberals and the left. They keep talking about the poor people, but they're so elitist themselves. But it's almost, and this is, whether it be in Europe, whether it be in America, whether it be in India, there's this thing among this liberal elite.
Well, I'll suggest you do a social profile of the leadership of the left.
Yes, yes.
What has been their economic backgrounds?
Exactly.
They don't let the poor come upon that leadership.
Exactly. Like even the Labour Party in Britain, and they still all go to the same schools as the as the Conservative.
So I'll tell you a very interesting incident. Why I left the left.
Yes.
Wait,
but before that, during the
why I joined the left, I can say that also.
Yes, exactly. Why you joined, why you left, and during the emergency, were you a communist or not?
You see, what happened during emergency, I was a nationalist. I had never thought on left and right lines.
Okay. So
I was, as a student, I was opposed to Congress. That's it.
Right.
Okay. Now, during the emergency, what happened, that things got, disarranged and all, there were few young leaders of CPM who were hiding in my hometown.
That's a Communist Party Marxist.
Marxist.
Yes.
So I came in contact with them. And we were all opposed to Congress in that sense,
right.
An emergency in that sense. So we all worked together, And that's how I joined the party.
Can I ask a question? There's a book that was very important for me in understanding Indian history called India's Struggle for Independence. I believe Ranjit Guha was a lead author. There's like 5 authors. Do you know the book I'm talking about?
Is this about subaltern studies series you are talking about?
It might be. I have the book on my shelf here, but it's a little far away from my hand right now.
Or is it that Bipin Chandra volume?
Yeah, Bipin Chandra, that's it.
Bipin Chandra. You're talking of his group,
That's right.
We call them Sarkari Darbari historians,
Right, yes.
For the Congress.
And they opened up my eyes to all the different communist struggles, revolutionary struggles, outside of the Congress and Gandhi, because everything you hear, Gandhi, non-violence, and really outside of that, there were so many things that have been suppressed, and so you kind of plugged into that in a way. Is that correct?
Very recently,
yes,
some documents have come out. The chief of the British Army in India, what's his name, Attenborough, something, in 46, writing home that an 1857 type situation has emerged in India.
Right. Now in the Indian Navy?
If we have to rule, we'll have to reconquer India.
Yes.
And for that, I will need 1 lakh European soldiers.
Yeah. That's 100,000. Yeah.
100,000. And why is he saying that? Because the Indian Navy, British Indian Navy had revolted.
Yep.
The INA soldiers were there in the country.
Yeah, that's the Indian National. And
about 20 lakhs of Indians who were mobilized for the Second World War.
Yeah.
They have been disbanded.
Right. And just to let people know, because this is something so important that the world doesn't know about, the Indian National Army, organized by Subhash Chandra Bose, and he was working with Hitler and the Japanese, right? And so they supported Indian independence from Britain, and they were fighting the British, and they mobilized this army. And so what you're saying is that the INA, the Navy, these people, right, were a threat, were recognized as a threat. So continue.
The demobilized soldiers and all.
Yep.
And there was mass awakening. Because one thing had been made clear in 1937-39, when Congress ministries were formed. It was made very clear to the people. It may not have been clear to the leadership, but to the Indian people, it was very clear that the British rule is going. It's not going to. And we had seen 1942, the movement. In 1942, Quit India movement.
Right, yes.
And the kind of program people followed. They gave away all Gandhian non-violence and all.
Yes.
Railway stations were attacked. Post offices were targeted. Telegraph offices were targeted. Communication lines were destroyed.
Because during World War II, Gandhi suspended his campaign, right?
Well, Gandhi, I don't know, because after 45, Gandhi is a changed man, you know. What he says himself at the time of partition, he says that today there are fellow monarchs if I still consider myself to be a monarch.
Right.
The very leadership, you know, it's very interesting. Once I was being interviewed by BBC on 30th January for Gandhi's death thing. And he asked me, what are your views on Gandhi's assassination, Gandhi's death?
Yes.
So I asked him that which death of Gandhi you are talking of.
Right.
He said, what do you mean? I said, Gandhi died many times. I said, first was his political death.
Yes.
When the very leadership which Gandhi created, for that leadership, Gandhi had become redundant.
Right.
That was his political isolation. The second is, he committed suicide by first saying that partition will be over my dead body.
You're right.
And then accepting it.
Yeah.
And there's a very interesting correspondence between Aruna Asaf Ali and Gandhi at that time.
Okay.
So Professor Sumit Sarkar highlighted, our historians in that Aruna Asaf Ali is writing to Gandhi. Come and lead the anti-partition movement. People are looking towards you. But the common man doesn't want India to be divided. And look, so many places which are being opposed. And Hindus and Muslims are fighting together, the British. The INA, Hindus and Muslims were together. The Naval
right.
They were together. They were
you made this point that in this struggle, at the same time that partition was being promoted, the radical revolutionary struggle united Hindus and Muslims.
United in doing that. And Gandhi says, they have joined hands on barricades.
Yes.
Which is against my policy of non-violence.
Yeah.
And then Aruna Asaf Ali wrote back to him, Hindus and Muslims can join hands only on barricades.
Right.
And here my question comes. What was the relevance of that non-violent struggle which led to so much communal violence in 47, 46?
Right.
Can you isolate the violence of partition from India's independence? The uprooting of people.
Yes.
Beside from common man to a rich man.
Yeah.
I've come across people who had come holidaying in summer to Shimla from Lahore. They couldn't return to their homes.
That's right. Yeah. There's so many.
So can that violence be isolated from that?
So, I want to get your point here because I've heard you made it in another lecture as well, and I wasn't clear. Are you saying that the violence during communalism is because of Gandhi's non-violence campaign, or what? I'm trying to.
No. I'm not saying that. You see, it's a historical context.
Yes.
In 1939, Bose wanted to form a government in
Subhash Chandra Bose.
Bengal,
yeah.
With Praja Krishak Party.
Okay.
Fazlul Haq's party to isolate Muslim League over there.
Right.
In Bengal. And Gandhi agreed to that.
Right.
And by the time Bose went there and started his efforts, which were coming through,
right.
Suddenly a decision is taken at Varda by Gandhi at the instance of G.D. Birla, the capitalist over there, big one. You know, this we shouldn't do. And a message is sent to Bose. You know, stop it.
Right.
I have a very fundamental question. One second, Prof.
Yeah.
Which areas went to Pakistan?
Yes, is in Punjab and Bengal.
In Punjab, the Muslim League could never make inroads.
Right.
It was the Unionist party of Sikandar Hayat Khan till 45.
Right.
In Bengal, it was the Praja Krishak party, except for Sindh, where the Muslim League had a domination.
So are you saying that Bose was going to wanted to create a government in Bengal? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, without the Muslim League, to oust Muslim League,
right?
A government with Fazlul Haq, the Praja Krishak party.
But how would he do?
Praja Krishak party was seen as more left-oriented for the peasants.
Now, but would this have been part of the British colonial system, or was he declaring a revolutionary government?
No. You see, when these state governments were being formed,
right?
You know, in 1939, Congress ministries had resigned,
right?
So all these governments were being formed over there,
right? So part of the colonial administration still.
Bengal, no party was in majority,
right?
So a coalition between Praja Krishak party and Congress would have been a much more secular, within quotes the way you use the word here in India, a coalition to outrightly reject Muslim League.
Right. I understand. Right.
You see, in 1937 elections,
Muslim
League could get only 2 seats in the UP Assembly.
Right.
The largest province.
Mm-hmm.
So I accept to that. Why did Gandhi started calling Jinnah Qaid-e-Azam?
Right.
When Jinnah is at the lowest of his politics.
Mm-hmm.
And in certain respects, I may not blame Jinnah. Jinnah was Tilak's advocate.
Yeah.
At a time. And there's another history to that. I won't go into those deep.
But so ever since you were young, you were critical of the whole Congress history and so forth. Now, so during the emergency, I want to get to this story in the emergency because I think there's a story there because
I'll narrate a very interesting instance to you. I started my teaching career in 76 January.
Okay.
That's just emergency.
During the emergency itself.
A few months before. And I was supposed to teach national movement to my MA students.
Okay. Right.
And
okay, I have the dates wrong. So the emergency started in 77.
Yeah. No, 75.
Right, 75. Okay, right. That's what I thought.
76 January I joined.
Right, okay.
My teaching. And in my class, I was to teach them the Jallianwala Bagh incident.
Okay.
The famous massacre.
Right. That just for the other people to know, that's when the British massacred people in Amritsar. It was a scene in the Gandhi movie, a very emotional scene and so forth. Yes.
So I told my students, can you please read the clauses of the Rowlatt Act? This was an act brought by the British.
Right.
To curb liberties in India. And that's the gift India got for its contribution in the First World War.
Yes.
From the British. And then I said, you read the clauses and all. So it will be easy for me to explain to you Jallianwala Bagh incident.
Yeah.
So one of the students next day got up and she asked me, sir, as you said, I have gone through the Rowlatt Act provisions. Please explain to me what is the difference between the laws imposed in independent India today during this emergency, and the Rowlatt Act at that time by the British. And if our own free Indian government can impose these rules, then why were we fighting the British for that?
Right. Mm-hmm.
What's the difference? And I had to concede, and I said, well, the only difference I can say between the two is that they were imposed on us by a colonial ruling power, and these have been imposed on us by our own Indians.
Right.
That's the irony.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the examples of emergency.
Yeah.
And then I remember during when the emergency was uplifted.
Yeah.
Well, there are plenty of jokes which came during the emergency. We used to create jokes at that time. Because one way of mental protest is mental protest. If you can't physically protest, you make fun and you mentally protest that. So this remember of the old time British jokes, when you used to make fun of the British in India as a kind of protest. That happened during the emergency also, in terms of jokes. Very interesting jokes were there. I remember one of the jokes was that there came a telegram to the deputy collector in the district. Okay, please send us the count of the asses in your district. Donkeys in your district. So this fellow orders the sub-divisional magistrate, please get the count. And the sub-divisional magistrate come back and says, sir, there are 55 donkeys here in our administration. He said, no, please add 2 more, me and you. Otherwise, we will keep getting these stupid, orders from. So many such jokes came and all.
And in fact, V.S. Naipaul wrote his India, a Wounded Civilization during the emergency as well. I mean, yeah.
So, and then when elections were declared, I remember I was teaching in Ghaziabad and I was coming to Delhi at that time for my research, PhD I was doing at that time. So I'll come by train. And by the time I would get down at the Minto Road, train station, I would have covered 3-4 bogies in the train, delivering lectures to the people against the emergency, against the Congress.
Right.
And then I will catch a bus from the Minto Bridge, 6:15 if I had to go to the archives, or 6:20 if I had to go to the Nehru Museum Library, and I will lecture in that bus against them. And one was young at that time, only 22.
Yeah. And so you became sort of an activist in a sense.
So we do that, we imprint a movement. But then gradually what happened, that within the communist movement, I never compromised on the nationalism issue.
Right.
And I always used to give them the example of China.
Mm-hmm.
Learn nationalism from China. This whole concept which you talk of international brotherhood of the... Anyway.
Yes.
My first difference came over the Tiananmen Square.
Mm-hmm.
Well, second difference came during the Babri Masjid and Ram Janambhoomi issue.
Right. And that's an issue just for people who might be listening abroad.
Well, you see, I say I speak very openly and bluntly about my life.
That's when...
and that's the time as a communist...
birthplace of Ram.
As a communist, I opposed the demolition.
Okay.
And we were giving arrest that day.
Right.
In opposition to that.
Right.
Demolition. And my CPM secretary was standing there.
Right.
And when we gave our arrest and boarded the bus,
yes,
there was another group coming from behind to give arrest. And I heard this CPM secretary whispering into the ears of the police official, they are not ours, do whatever you want to do with them.
Right.
That shook me. It was a shock. You talk of unity, left unity, this, that. And here is a group coming to support on a common issue. And you are telling the police, do anything what you want to do with them.
Right.
That was a shock. Then a very interesting thing happened.
So that's very interesting. So you took a side against the demolition of the mosque. That's very, very...
This is not the way at that time.
Yeah.
But when I look back now...
Yeah.
Then there was a general body meeting of the CPM taking place, in which one of the leaders, I can name him also, but still leave it.
Yes.
Names are not important. He was lecturing. And he was lecturing in a way that what the Indian Prime Minister is doing today is what CPM is telling him to do.
Right.
So I got up and I said, comrade, don't be a fool. The Prime Minister is doing what suits his politics. And don't be under this illusion.
Yeah.
And this has happened. So immediately an announcement was made. Okay, no one is supposed to interrupt. No one is supposed to question. And if anyone has to question, you can put up your question in writing. That was another shock.
Right.
Okay, we go outside on the streets fighting for democracy. We raise slogans, Prajatantra Zindabad, or we need democracy and freedom of speech and all that. And here within the party meeting, you're not allowing anyone to. So the final stroke which came, that was in 96. After the elections, the opposition got combined and they offered Jyoti Basu, the Bengal CPM chief minister, to become the Prime Minister of India.
Right.
And we were there all outside the Politburo meeting, insisting that he should accept it. So that day I was interviewed by many news channels.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave 4 arguments for supporting that. I said internationally the left is on the decline.
Mm-hmm.
Having a left prime minister in the largest democracy in the world gives an international signal. I said, secondly, you have nothing to lose. Come out with pro-people policies. If other coalition parties don't let you work, come out and say, we wanted to do this, they didn't allow us to do it. Then thirdly, I said that India is a large country. Develop an all-India perspective. Don't look at India from the eyes of Bengal or Kerala only.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I said was, which was theoretically very crucial, I said, I don't understand this Marxism. Either you don't participate in a bourgeois democracy, but if you participate in a bourgeois democracy and you accept the responsibility to run a state government, then what is this Marxism? Why not a national government?
Yeah.
And that was my last day with the party.
Because you were there for 21 years.
Oh, yes, almost.
Yeah.
I was active in the teachers' movement, basically.
Right.
That was the end of it. After that, I didn't join any party.
Right.
I'm a staunch nationalist.
Right.
And even today, I tell them, I said, learn nationalism from China. You know the interesting part of China? In UN Security Council, China is opposing Hafiz Saeed to be declared as an international terrorist.
Right.
And in their own country, how China is dealing with Islamic terrorists.
Yes.
Who terrorists who using Islam over there.
Yes.
How they're dealing with it. So in one of the TV debates, when I raised this question with one of my ex-comrades, he said, each country has its own nationalism. I said, thank you, comrade. At least you accept now that nationalism is something, because for you earlier nationalism was only a bourgeois concept.
Right.
So one grows, there are good things also. I learned in left, you see.
Yes, of course. Of course. I mean, I
my determination to fight, struggle and all. And even my whole concept, even now with the left today is, you see, in a democracy, you criticize the government. You criticize a political party, which is an essential element of a democracy. But you can't support those who say that India will be made into pieces.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Tukle barbadi ke. You can't support. I can't listen against my nation as such.
Yeah.
If something comes to it.
Yeah. I mean, people in the United States, people revere Abraham Lincoln because he didn't want the, United States to split up, and they had a very bloody civil war because of it. I mean, so this is a difficult thing here. But now, in sum, what would you say is the main message you want to put out to the world, either in general or even with this Jammu and Kashmir issue?
You see, on both things I will say, we are a peace-loving people. We have never invaded. But we are capable of defending ourselves. And now, not only defending ourselves, but to chase our attackers also right back to their homes. So please, in the name of peace, force these states which breed terrorism. World can't be going by hypocrisy. If you know that a state is a terrorist state, a state is harboring terrorism, come out openly against that state, because you don't know that by remaining silent today, you are digging your own grave. You know what are the ISIS plans? What kind of a world they want?
The ISI, the Pakistan Intelligence Service?
No, ISIS.
Oh, ISIS. Yes.
And ICI works with them in collusion. That's why Bin Laden and all were there. That's why the terrorists get there.
Right.
You know what is happening? What should I say whether I have this? My experience shows that even in the Caribbean region, the Boko Haram or some of these Mujahideen are moving in.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. We in Trinidad and Tobago.
I've seen newspaper reports in Trinidad newspapers.
Yes. Well,
people returning from Syria after this.
We had an Islamic coup in 1990.
I know that. Abu Bakr, yes, I know that.
The only Islamic coup in the Western Hemisphere happened in our country. And it is directly related to Wahhabi missionaries coming out from the 1970s.
How many are more there now? But I want to say only one thing. In fact, I'll say to the people in the Caribbean, okay, please, please, please maintain your harmony.
Yeah.
Maintain your peace. Maintain your relationships. Don't go by communal divisions. Don't go against each other communities. Be together. That is for your prosperity.
And for the international community with the Jammu and Kashmir, it's to really call out terrorism.
Is that please don't go by propaganda.
Right.
Because many experts who come and speak on Jammu and Kashmir don't know even the ABC history of Kashmir.
That's right.
Yes, there are problems in Kashmir, I said. Kashmir is not an issue, but there are issues inside Kashmir that uneven development has taken place.
Right.
And for that, I blame solely this so-called political leadership in Kashmir of different parties.
Right.
From where they have got the money that today they are buying villas in London. These separatists making 4-story houses at the cost of the common people of Kashmir. The tourism sector. They never let tourism develop beyond Gulmarg, Pahalgam and Srinagar.
Right.
Whereas such as beautiful areas for rural tourism, for Kashmirians and all that. And I asked once a question to these people. When anyone says, my community is illiterate, my community doesn't get jobs, my community is poor and all, this, that. I said, yes, I agree. That's the case. But I have a question to you. And you answer it to yourself. Ask this question to yourself and then answer yourself. And you will get the answers what you are asking me or you are asking the government. How come your community is so weak, poor, uneducated, but you and your entire family members are so rich and so educated? Because you want to keep your community to be uneducated, poor, orthodox, so that you can do politics on them. You can use them. That's
right. And let me ask you something on a personal level. I mean, as you said at the beginning, you talk straight, you give your opinion, and you've, I mean, you know, so...
Well, I don't think I have minced words or anything.
That's right. And you know, you, from a young man, I mean, you rejected the whole nationalist ideology.
Not the nationalist ideology.
Yeah, no. I mean,
kind of nationalism being projected by the Congress.
Exactly. I don't mean nationalist. You rejected the Congress idea of history and so forth, and so you were very independent-minded and strong-minded from a young man, apparently. Where do you think that comes from, personally?
I think it comes from my parents.
From your parents.
The way they brought me up. What they taught me.
Were they politically active?
My father was active in the 42 movement.
Right.
In 1942, in the Quit India movement, he was with the militaries.
Right.
When his warrants were issued, he ran away, but he never claimed that status of freedom fighter and all. But he taught me 2-3 things in my life. One is, when you climb up on the stairs, always keep looking down from where you had started. Never forget that.
Yep.
Then he taught me, never hit anyone on the stomach. I remember that. And he taught me, don't compromise with your principles. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing. When I offered history as a subject at my undergraduate level, I had in my mind the civil services, IS and all.
Yes.
By the time I completed my BA, history honors I did, that had gone. I won't go for IAS, Indian Administrative Services, because I thought, I can't listen to the orders of these politicians, in bureaucracy. Then suddenly, let me be a police officer. Because one night you can even police this minister behind the bars. It will be seen next time what happens. That was student life, thing coming up.
Yeah.
But then I did my master's, and I was getting some offers of jobs. I was asked to join as a DSP in police, also in Central Reserve Police Force, because I was a state champion in athletics and I had positions in nationals and all. I refused that. My father was very angry with me. Why are you refusing jobs? People don't get jobs. What do you want to be? So I said, Dad, I want to be a lecturer. So he said, if you become a lecturer, financially you will remain like me throughout your life. And I said, do you have any grudge? He said, no. But tell me why you want to be a lecturer. And I said, 2 reasons. One, whatever I'm paid for, less or more, I can do my job honestly in the classroom. So I have a mental satisfaction that I'm not a part of the corrupt system.
Right.
Second, I am my own master. I don't have to flatter enemy. And I think time is less. I'll just make one statement. What is my motto in life? See, he will call me up only once. And when he calls, I don't have the power to say no. And I'm not a shameless person that I'll intrude and go and meet him. So people in this world I've seen, they die every day to live for one day.
That's right.
I live every day to die one day. And that's why when people ask me, you're not scared, not this, you take this stand, you take that stand, you make enemies, you make this and that. I said, well, it is one day only when one has to go up. So why be afraid?
That's right. Very good. Well, I want to thank you. Well, and before we go, what are you working on right now? Any books or anything right now?
You see, recently I have completed 5 museums. In fact, I've become a museum man. So in Red Fort, 4 museums. One is on 1857, one is on Jallianwala Bagh and First World War. The other one is on INA and Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. And one is what we call Azadi Ke Diwane. Those crazy operation, where we have brought in, the unknown revolutionaries and patriots and all that. And I wish I had time. I would have given you interesting examples out of these museums.
Well, definitely, we have to.
Another day we'll do that. And after that, now, 3 things are going simultaneously. I'm doing a book on now nationalism, Subhash Chandra Bose and nationalism, to make him understand and to counter that nonsense which comes against him that he was a fascist or he was a, Dojo's dog and all that. He was simply a nationalist for India's liberation. That's one. Another, my book is long overdue because I had worked on convict heritage tourism. I published some papers out of it.
Okay.
Overdue, so I'm working on that also. And besides that, from my center, we are in the process of collecting a lot of data and all. And my love in the last 5 years has been in nature history.
Oh.
So an edited work is coming. Something else also coming.
Well, that's good. Well, I always say I hope that one of my ancestors was one of the 50,000 people expelled to the plantations during the mutiny.
Because, 1857.
Yeah.
Great. I won't use the word mutiny. I now strongly object.
Sorry.
You use the word with mutiny. You know, that was the British terminology in those days.
Sorry, that's the British.
More than 50,000 with their families. And
yeah.
you know, someday other when we discuss on nature, what they couldn't do in India, they tried to do it there.
Right.
Because here they were not only getting plantation labor, but they were creating a new social order also.
That's right.
And that's the reason.
Fascinating.
And in your places like, you weren't allowed to construct a temple. You have now the temple by the sea. We've gone by the whole story. You were not allowed to cremate. Mm-hmm. I think it's only in the 50s, 1950s that cremation was allowed. The marriages were not recognized.
That's right.
Both Hindu and Muslim, I think. Yeah. Muslim marriages were recognized in 35 and Hindu in 45, if I'm not wrong there. Yeah. So you can understand, when I see these documents in your archives over there, where I find a legitimate child. And what does it mean to a both Hindu and a Muslim? Both Hindu and a Muslim being called an illegitimate child.
Yeah, my mother as well. And her family, same. Yeah, that's our history.
So, but I'm seeing that even in the field of nature history now, I think there are people who are coming forward, which are challenging these colonial interpretations or colonial propaganda in relation to nature history.
Yeah.
Because these kind of exercises that India was a poor country, people were very poor, there was caste oppression, that's why people came here. It's all absent.
That's right, exactly. The whole story, it has to be tied to the East India Company, it has to be tied to the opium trade.
That's why question.
It has to be tied, yes, to the geopolitics.
That India, which you are searching as a golden bird, how come that India becomes so poor in 100 years?
Exactly.
People have to run away.
There's a lot of work to be done on this, the reinterpretation of history, and it affects nationalism today, and it affects, and all the geopolitics, whether it be in Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be in Venezuela, whether it be wherever in the world. But I want to thank you so much for your work.
It's my pleasure, King, and we'll be in touch. And it's a really good thing, to be with you, talk to you very frankly, and the questions I like, which you asked. And I hope my answers were to your satisfaction, or at least something different from what others have to say on Jammu and Kashmir and other places. Said that. And again, I'll reiterate, we Indians want peace, we want prosperity, but not at the cost of our nation and our honor.
That's correct. So I want to thank you so much for your work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Right. It's not, helping to bring out the truth, challenging lies, and for your fearlessness. Your work is extremely important and it's enlightening, not only for India, but for the world, and especially in the global context of the struggle of nationalism versus globalism that's taking place in so many countries. So not only for this interview, but for your work in general, I'm thanking you.
Thank you very much.
That's all for Independent Thought and Freedom this week. Please join us again next week. And in the meanwhile, make sure you subscribe, leave me a rating, and like and share this podcast with your friends. Thanks, and bye for now.